be the joke. Like it's fun to be the joke every now and then because it makes the room a little less stuffy. It's creating an inclusive environment, but inclusive from the sense of everyone feels comfortable in there. Every problem you see in this class, in other classes in your life, if you can break it down into the simplest steps to the root fundamental next step, you can solve that problem. I promise you.
Welcome to the CFI Faculty Lounge Podcast, an outlet created for continuous learning and actionable insights for faculty. I'm your host, Eric Magrum, inviting you to join us in conversation with dedicated educators who share their experiences, challenges, and effective solutions. Today, I'm excited to welcome Dr. Bobby Vaziri, an associate professor in the Department of Computer Information Systems and Business Analytics here at James Madison University. Bobby also teaches within the MBA program and conducts research in business analytics, ranking methods with applications to sports, and academic motivation in higher education. Welcome, Bobby, and thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you, Eric, for having me. I'm excited to be here in the Faculty Lounge. I'm excited to talk.
So can you walk us through your journey as an educator, how it all began, and what brought you here today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Academia was really in kind of like my family. My father was a professor, and so I kind of saw that lifestyle and at a young age. And after graduating with my bachelor's degree, I went out and worked in industry, and I enjoyed it, but it always felt like something was missing. And I really enjoyed being in the classroom. And a lot of the times the classes that I really liked were because I really enjoyed the experience with the professor. And so those two points kind of mold together and inspired me to go back to school. I hadn't fully committed to being a faculty at that time, but I said, it was in the back of my mind. And once I got to graduate school at Purdue, I think it was in my second year, I started being a teaching assistant, and eventually I was a course instructor, and I just loved it. And I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to research, but I also want to teach students and kind of be in that role. And from there, it's just been kind of checkpoint after checkpoint and really enjoying the journey.
So 3 things there: lifestyle, experience with a professor, and then industry to academia.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the lifestyle that you saw through your dad, it sounds like?
Yeah, I think it was more like a cultural thing that when you go into academia, when you're a faculty member, it's a lifestyle of being open-minded and questioning norms and listening. And really doing everything you can to try and inspire others. And these things all work great in the classroom, but they also just work well in life. And so I think a lot of those things resonated with me. And it probably took me longer than I realized to kind of coherently depict that. But I think that subconsciously that was there.
So the experience with the professor, was that one experience or maybe a couple, or was it like all the time?
It varied, right? Like I can remember there would be and I won't name the subject, but there might be a subject I had, and I was just like, I really didn't like that subject. And when I think back, it was like that professor wasn't really interested in it. They weren't really passionate about it. And then I'll think back to, I really loved so-and-so physics or decision sciences. And I'm always like, yeah, that was the professor that I really liked, or that was the teacher that I really liked. And they went that extra mile to connect with me as a person and to showing me how these things can be used in your life. These are such vital skills. And a lot of the times I look back on some of my classes and I'm like, I would have loved to have understood this from a different angle. And so now I make it a real point when I'm designing my classes or even designing my lectures. Every day I start with a why. Like, why are we learning this? This, like, I'm teaching like an undergraduate core course. It's like this course is required for all business majors. And the subjects and, the learning objectives of this course have been approved by the college. Why is hypothesis testing a learning objective rather than here's the formula, here are the letters, here are the numbers that go to those letters, plug them in. And because AI does, you don't even need AI to do that. But so that's what I like to focus on. And the professors and teachers that did that with me, it gave me such a better experience in those classes.
I think it's so interesting because one of my mentors at the University of Georgia, Dr. Gary Green, he said, Eric, if you're not passionate about what you're teaching, how can you expect them to want to learn it?
That's a great way to put it.
And, that resonates so heavily with me. And then you think about what makes people interested in a given topic.
Yeah.
And I truly believe, don't get me wrong, there's a normal distribution of interests in various areas. But then when you are exposed to somebody that is super passionate or super enthusiastic about something inside you just internally combusts, and you're just like pouring out with passion. I feel like. Have you experienced that sort of deal?
I couldn't agree more. And I honestly don't even mean this as a plug, but my first year here, when I came to the CFI new faculty orientation, like everyone was so passionate and inspired about JMU and about like, and I promise to the listeners, I was not paid to say this, but that really just, that popped into my head. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like, I'm excited to be a faculty member now at JMU. Like, let's go. So it was really cool, and you're right. It rubs off. It's contagious, and like you said, it's the other way as well. So it's that battle to always make sure you're on the positive side.
Now, switching gears a little bit, the transition from industry to academia. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and that's really interesting because I'll start off by saying this: a really important concept to understand for me and for all professors is, we're professors, but most of the students we're teaching don't necessarily want to be professors, and they want to go to industry. And so it's very easy to look at it through my lens and what fits based on as I talked about before, the environment that I grew up in and some of like the skills that I've identified that resonate well with me. So it's really important for me to remember that my experience with industry isn't necessarily what someone else's will be. But overall, what I enjoyed about it was I got to apply a lot of the things I was learning. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And I really liked working with teams, working with other people. And I think honestly, it wasn't that I didn't like industry. I could go back and be happy, but I think there were some things I was like, wow, I would love to, like I'm working on a manufacturing floor and I'm using some of the things I learned in my class, in undergrad. And I'm like, oh, this would have been so cool if it had been taught this way. And so those are the kind of things that would pop into my mind. And I think for me, it was just more like hey man, you got to get back in the classroom. Like that's where you belong. And that's not going to be the case for everyone. So for me, that was kind of what led me in that change. But I think the good thing about that, the reason I'm so glad I had that is because that got baked into my like teaching philosophy now. So when I show a formula, that formula has to have a reason. It has to have, I want my students, I honestly don't really care if they remember the formula, because research shows that in 5 to 10 years, they probably won't be using it and they probably won't remember it. But what they will remember is what that formula is used to do. And can you communicate that to someone who's never seen that formula? Because that's a lot of what industry is like. And even nowadays, I mean, because, when I graduated, like 19 years ago from undergrad. Oh gosh. But like, even then when like Google was a mainstay at that point. And so knowledge was just, and now it's like ChatGPT, Copilot. I mean, these things do the thinking for, so you've really got to be able to communicate it. So I went a little bit off topic there, but that was my transition. And that's why it was so valuable to me. It's because it's helped me reframe how I teach based on my industry experiences.
But it sounds like you've always had sort of the heart of a teacher. And I say this because I've identified this amongst other teachers as well as myself, that you were in the industry and you were sitting there thinking, if I was going to teach this, I would teach it a little. Like that's so, and it's so, I'm going to pick this little thing out and I would, if I was teaching this on this slide, I would do this and I'd do this and I'd do this. And it comes back to a story, I'm not going to say which class, but I was in 6th grade. And I remember thinking, if I was the teacher, I would organize this room a little differently. and I didn't, at no point did I think I was going to be a teacher at that, like in 6th grade, but I was thinking those things.
Yeah.
So it just super interesting.
It's a rare disease, but yes. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. In your view, what does it mean to excel in your role?
To excel in my role, and I'm going to think of that as a role as a professor, I think that part of my role is contributing to the theory and body of knowledge through research. That's through whether it's domain research, pedagogical research, different things. Part of it is giving service to the university, whether that's my department, the college, university level, and to professional organizations. And then part of it is about providing a good learning experience for my students. And that's kind of like the official answer. But I think unofficially, if you're doing all those things well with passion, what it looks like in excelling is students are graduating and tangibly they're getting jobs, but even intangibly, they are becoming positive contributors to society. And so I think if you're just researching just to research, or you're just doing service to check a box, or you're just teaching a class because it's on your schedule, it's not that that won't happen, but I think that when you try to tie those things in together, how that helps you excel in your role is I always say it's like graduation. That graduation is one of my favorite events ever. Just seeing students with their parents, they're like graduating, they're getting jobs, everyone's so happy, and it's just awesome to see. And so I try to link all three of those pillars together to help the students excel, and then hopefully when they graduate, they're off on that track, both academically, but just also in their life.
So you're providing a value to the student through the educational experience.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I'll take that answer.
So what unique qualities or perspectives do you bring to your role as an educator?
Oh, that's interesting. What unique? So I think one thing that I like to do, and this goes back to I really think classrooms are like these custom tailored experiences. And I think what I bring is I have some background in like performance. And so I like to have fun in the classroom. And the reason I really enjoy doing that is because I'm teaching stuff that a lot of times can be scary and maybe not fun. I teach two core classes in the College of Business. These are quantitative courses. They've had some stigmas or reputations in the past. And so I find that, when I can get up there and just have some fun and like be the joke, it's fun to be the joke every now and then because it makes the room a little less stuffy. And they're like, oh, this guy knows how to do all this stuff, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. Like, this isn't a life or death matter. I want to think the best way to use this word. It's creating an inclusive environment, but inclusive from the sense of everyone feels comfortable in there. And they're like, oh yeah, like I'm going to like stats class, but it's not like, oh my gosh, it's stats class. I need to like very rigid. And a lot of times in those quantitative courses, you feel very kind of like contained within yourself, and you're not able to just relax and be in that moment. And I think having fun in the classroom and throwing in a joke every now and then, or using an example with TikTok, and I'll just, I don't know anything about TikTok, but they laugh and they're laughing. They're probably laughing at me, let's be honest, but it's all good because that regenerates their attention, and now they're locked in more to the lecture. And so it's like, good, now you're having positive experiences with this stuff, and that's going to stick with you.
So I have so many points off of that. So, because listeners, if you could see me, I was shaking my head just in agreement, because I very much see the classroom as some folks don't like this term, but I'm going to use it. I see it as edutainment. If I can entertain and educate at the same time, I am going to be way more effective. Even if that comes at the expense of me or my lack of hair. I'm bald for listeners. Like I am constantly saying like, or this bald, this bald-headed professor. And I find that allows everybody to use your term or give you a term to have more psychological safety, instead of saying, holy crap, Dr. Vaziri, hopefully he doesn't call on me because I don't know the p-value of this and what that even means. Like, wait a minute, he just made a joke about himself, and even if I say something is wrong, it's going to be okay. And I think that is so powerful because not only I think are people going to be more safe, but I would argue you can't really learn if you don't feel safe.
Totally agree. I think you summed it up great. That's a really important part of like the approach. So I'm with you.
And I would also say the fun part. I was recently listening to a podcast, and it was from I'm not even gonna try the name, but it was a gentleman that focuses on hospitality. He wrote a book, and he talked about they had like the number one restaurant in New York or something like that, or maybe it was even the world. It's something like that. And he said, we're going to get through focusing on hospitality. And he said, but we're going to have fun doing this. And we're going to turn this into a game, because if people are in a game and you're having fun, you're probably being more hospitable to your guests and whatnot as well. So I think that's one thing that we can take away from other folks, steal from other folks, make our classrooms more fun. I say this to my students on the first day. If I'm having fun, that means you're having fun and we're learning.
Well said.
So I don't know if you have any comments on that, but
I completely agree. I think it goes back to it's super contagious. And the thing is, the students are very intuitive and they know a lot more than we think a lot of times. And they can pick up on that. They know if you're phoning it in or if you're really there giving it your all. And when you're on the boat and you're rowing hard, that makes me want to row, and then everyone wants to row hard. So that's how I think of it.
Yeah, there's nothing like a teacher that's getting after it up there. Yeah. And it just makes you want to, I've been that student, like, I might not have the right answer, but I have an answer because this person in front of me is just getting after it from an instructional perspective, and I want to help them. But I also want to learn from them. You said you talked about a performance background.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Playing, performing, writing music is a really big part of my personal life. And even growing up, I did some like music theater, but that was a long time ago. So, kind of getting up on stage in front of a group of people and performing for them, there are some similarities there. And I think oftentimes that just kind of helps a little bit with some of the nerves and with some of like the skills of projecting, like making contact with your audience, things like that.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to a previous guest that we talked to, Dr. Eric Magrum. He's a composer in the School of Music, and it reminds me of the crossover. And I'm also bringing in like my performance approach is projecting as a coach,
right? And
like it parallels very, very closely to the classroom. All right, to this point in your career, what are you most proud of?
Oh, that's a good question. I think at this point in my career, I'll touch back on something I talked about briefly before, and it's on when I got here, there was a certain reputation and stigma around the classes, that I came in to teach, which were our lower level core classes. And I'm not going to go into that too much, but we've made a lot of efforts through student success programming, and that's been really important to me. And I believe we're seeing positive results, and that's extremely satisfying to see. And that's something that I think you asked, what are you most proud of?
Yep. What are you most proud of?
I would say that to this point is what I'm most proud of. And going back to the connecting thing, that was actually part of, it's all of the teaching, research, and service, because I actually had an undergraduate researcher do a study to kind of take the temperature of how students felt about these classes. We did factor analysis, and then we started saying, all right, well, let's do these interventions to see if we can improve it. And one of those is like a success workshop that I set up for one of our classes. And I do that now twice a semester. And that's just, I love to do it. And I've kind of tailor-made, I've custom-made this. It's almost like a boot camp, but it's just like a one night thing. It's the like first week, and like I think it's like week 9 or week 8, like in the middle of the semester for this class. And the students are commenting that they really appreciate it, and it's really making them feel better about going into these quantitative courses. So that's been huge for me personally.
So you talked about student success programming and then success workshops. Can you talk about that? Now, is that something that you did sort of on by yourself, or is there a team, or what's that look like?
That's a good question. I mean, I definitely here and there, like water cooler talk with colleagues and whatnot. And there were a few people that I researched with on academic motivation that we were like, one of my colleagues, Dr. Luis Novoa, had done some literature review and found some interesting stuff about the role of prior knowledge in students. Like the prior knowledge of a student will have impact on how successful they are on the course, how motivated they are to do well on the course. And so kind of bridging some of that stuff together, that's when I designed the success workshop. I said, this class here, it kind of starts halfway up these steps. And a lot of our students are coming in on the ground floor. So let me design like some custom exercises and some it's like review, but a lot of times when people are like, we're going to do a review, it's like, we're doing a review because it's hard stuff. And maybe you learned it once, like in high school, maybe you didn't. So my hope is that I can walk up the first couple of steps with them. And then so when they walk into class, instead of them being on the ground and like, wait, where's that professor halfway up the steps? Where are they going? And then they're trying to catch up the whole semester. Now they can at least walk in on the same floor. And so the hope is that increase in prior knowledge will help them be successful in the course.
And is this like an hour-long workshop?
Yeah, it's like about 2 hour workshop, and I do 2 of them. So like I have one that I do to start the semester because it's for like the first half of the course, and then I do one for the second half of the semester for the second part of the course.
So it's like a secondary class within a class that's optional.
Totally optional. Yeah.
And hey, you show up at this time and place, and we're gonna do the song and the dance, and we're gonna learn some more about X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, and we're getting good attendance and always trying to make it better. Like this last fall, the first one, I want to say there's around. I might get these. I might completely botch these numbers, but I think there's around usually 500 to 600 students enrolled in the class, and I had around 60.
Oh, okay.
So about 10%.
Yeah, about 10%.
So not bad. But that's 10% more than there was before we had the success workshop. So
that's awesome. I love the outside of the box thinking there too. I might be stealing that.
Please.
I might be stealing that.
I love it. It's so gratifying. And I tell those students, I don't even teach that class right now. And I tell all of them, like, anytime, like, come by office hours, and like sometimes they'll swing by, and it's great. You kind of make connections with this whole new group of students.
I also feel like it would increase just intrigue in the general topic, which then again would increase the effectiveness of the course.
I would hope so. And I think mainly the main kind of motivation again behind this, part of it is prior knowledge, is improving their prior knowledge going into the course, but a big part of it is kind of relieving or mitigating the stress and the negative energy going into those classes. I think that's a big part of it, because if you see someone on their own time is like, hey, I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait, so they want us to do well. Does that make, you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, because then it's like, oh wow, okay, cool. Like we're all in this boat together. Again, back to the rowing analogy.
Okay, so if I'm, for the listeners, can you paint, not to get too nitty gritty into the content, if I'm going to be a participant in this workshop, what is it? What am I walking into? Am I just walking into an empty class and like, okay, what questions do you have? Or is it like,
yeah, no. So yeah, I have a full, like, it's kind of a lecture, but it's an interactive one.
Okay.
What I really start off with is I show them a question that will be similar to something they would see on their first or second test.
Okay.
And I'm like, how many people are comfortable doing this? And usually not really anyone raises their hand. And I say, that's fine. We're going to walk from A to E. Here's the thing. We all know how to go from A to B. We all know how to go from B to C, C to D, D to E. But going even from A to C can be really challenging if you don't know to first go to B. And I'm like, every problem you see in this class, in other classes in your life, if you can break it down into the simplest steps to the root fundamental next step, you can solve that problem. I promise you. And then so what I do is I start, and this class is COB 291. It's called Business Analytics 2, but it's primarily like a decision sciences course. So the first half is a lot of what we call linear programming. And there's a lot of like algebraic formulation in that. And so I start with the very basics, like what's a linear function? We walk through some exercises. We do some really simple, basic, and you can see everyone's like, oh, this is easy. And I'm like, great. Because guess what? When we do that and we do the final problem at the end, and it's a combination of all these simple and I won't call them easy. They're a combination of simple steps that I've shown them along the way in the workshop. And at the end, I'm like, raise your hand if any of these steps individually was undoable. And like, really, you're not getting any hands raised. And I'm like, so y'all can do this. And like, we just did this together. I really feel like it kind of, it gets across to them, because I see a lot of really like excited students after that. Like, then in the comments, they're like, I'm excited. I'm ready to go for it. And I'm like, that's great. That's what we want.
That's awesome. I'm putting myself in the room, and I'm just like, I think that'd be awesome.
I love it. It's so special to me. And it's really special that people come out for the workshops.
So what drives you to continue growing and thriving in your role?
Oh gosh, we're saying that I'm thriving now. Let's see. The academic in me is like the red marking just came out. Could you define thriving? No, I'm kidding. No, I think it's really everything we've talked to up to this point. It's seeing, it's so funny. You'll get a former student like from 1 or 2 years ago, and sometimes they think they're like bothering you if they stop by and like update you, but it's like the best thing ever. I'm like, no, that's incredible.
Yes.
Like, shoot me that email. Stop by my office and tell me you got the internship. That's so awesome. But that's really it.
Those are like trophies.
Those are trophies.
Yes.
Those mean more than all that. Like you take any accolade you can think of, but like you just get a human being walk up to you, be like, hey, I got that internship. Like your class helped. I'm just like, that's it.
Yep.
Done.
That's awesome. And I want to ask a question that you aren't prepared for, but that's okay.
That's fine.
So walk me through the evolution of when you started in academia to now, like what's been the biggest change from when you walked in here, assistant professor, to right now?
Okay.
And maybe biggest hallmark beer truck messages, big changes that have been made.
I think one of them that is just in its infancy stage is, of course, generative AI. I have no idea where that's going to go. I know that I'm doing my best to not shy away from it, to encourage, to use it as a tool, but also still, assess students so that they're learning, what the why and the how of what they're doing. So generative AI is part of it. Is that kind of what you mean? Like
and I guess maybe even more for how you have your own evolution maybe as a teacher, as a researcher, as the way that you think about education, the way that you go about doing things. Because I know even I just came in 2022. Yeah. And I've changed drastically since that time.
No, now I get the question. That's a great question. So I think when I started, I was so focused on what I needed to do to be a good professor, what I needed to do to fit in the department, what I needed to do to look good for the college, what I needed to do to help the students. And I know it sounds like semantics. It's really not. When I stopped thinking about it through my own lens and I started thinking about, I'm going to do something, what's best for our students, what's best for them. And it's like a lot of the things are the same things that I may have been doing, but changing that little semantic shift, that's been the biggest thing by far. Because then it's like, then I'm not worried about what will this look like or how does this piece fit over there. It's just like, if I'm always working towards that goal, I'm kind of working in favor of evolving in a positive direction. And that just continuously doing that, it's like a gradient function that keeps finding its way to again, an optimal point. We're never going to get to an optimal point,
right?
But to a better point.
I like that. And that because it requires you to continuously get better, and change things, and is very not self-centered, because it's like, because you realize I'm the facilitator, so it's not about me, and so that's helped me a lot. Insightful, very insightful. Now this is really switching gears, and you spoke on this a little bit. Do you have any hobbies or personal interests that bring fresh energy or insights into your work?
I'll give one quick one and then I'll give maybe a longer one.
Yeah.
The quick one is, and we talked about this a little before, physical health is a big part of my life. It's just not only in terms of like PRs or how much you can bench, things like that, but more so just for my brain, my bones, my heart.
Exactly.
I just feel better when I work out. And so I use that analogy a lot with my students. And I'm kind of like, listen, the reason you lift weights is, and I don't know the science that well behind it, but I think you like tear your muscles and they regenerate back strong. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Basic premise, yes.
Okay. The basic premise. I know I'm like waving a magic wand here.
No, you're good.
But the idea is that like that pain is what's making you stronger. And I think that it's the same thing with class. So I tell my students, I'm like, you know, when you read like a long passage and a difficult question and you're like annoyed with the professor, because I get annoyed. I'm like, but just remember that's you benching that that's you running a little faster trying to hit your PR. That's you making your brain stronger. And so physical health and the whole idea, and because like students get that. I'm like, listen, you might only be running a 400 meter on the test, but today you're running the 800, and I want you to run it at the pace you run the, and I know that's not realistic, but the analogy holds.
Yes.
And so I hope that they appreciate that. And it's like, you know, the more I care about you, the more I'm going to challenge you in class. And that's kind of what a good physical trainer would do.
Well, and it's the principle of progressive overload. We have to challenge your physiology to a greater extent than it is accustomed to. So if you put 45 pounds on the bar, the next week you try to put 50 or 52 and a half or 55. It's the same thing that we do in class. Imagine if I came in and metaphorically gave you 45 pounds and then 45 pounds and then in the form of a lecture.
Right.
You would never come back.
Yeah.
Because I'm never giving you something new. And this is one of the things that we don't often make the parallel from progressive overload in the sense of greater speed, greater velocity, more load to more learning concepts or deeper, more meaningful concepts and how it's applied, or Bloom's taxonomy and working our way up Bloom's taxonomy or anything like that. And I think we need to do that a little bit more. So I greatly appreciate your metaphors, your analogies for exercise, because I think kids grab a hold of that more than they grab a hold of, not only are they developing their muscle that is between their ears, but they're also getting better at learning. And that's a skill in my estimation.
100% agree. And especially now with the access to, and I'll bring this back up, to generative AI, it is so much more important to have an agile and malleable brain that can learn. Because if you can't, you're going to become obsolete real quick.
Well, I think it's the same. Generative AI is super powerful, and I know about 1%, maybe 1% of 1% of it about anything.
Same, yeah.
But I use it to try to enhance the product, my own product. So I will, and this is where I think the knee-jerk reaction is it's going to give people the answers, and we don't want that. It can do that, but what it can do is also give you better answers and help you refine your answers and get better ideas in way less time. So it might take me 45 minutes to an hour to revise this sentence, whereas I say, this is my best go in 2 minutes. ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever, this is the goal of the sentence. This is what I've got. Can you help me make it better? And most importantly, how and why? How does my writing right now as it stands, how is it insufficient basically?
Right.
And then I can systematically make it a little bit better over time using it as a tutor. And I think that's where, if we can leverage those sort of tools to make our own products better, instead of just, okay, I'm going to throw this question that's maybe on a test or an exam and I just need the answer and I'm going to literally copy and paste. That's not how we want. And that's what I hope nobody's saying to do that. What I think it can be really useful, though, is enhancing your product.
Again, well said. I agree 100%. That's a great approach to it. And I like that idea of first come up with your solution and then ask AI, hey, can you make this better? And how?
It's got to be yours. And then that's where I do want to make the distinction. It has to be your product first that you're putting in and getting out slightly better products, not its product.
Right.
So... And I think we could talk about AI for about 18 hours straight, probably. So, okay. So you talked about the physical health aspect. There was one other aspect I think you were going to get to.
Oh, yeah. Well, and this one's probably a little more personal, but I do think, so coming back, yes, to that central question, like what's best for the students in the classroom. And I think for me, the aspect of like songwriting and performing has helped me a lot in becoming more in tune with myself and who I am. And this is somewhat tangential. It's not really direct. It's more like indirect. There may be a few levels in between, but that's helped me becoming more kind of like honest and just kind of discovering myself more has helped me feel more comfortable in the classroom. And I think that makes the experience better for the students. It's kind of like, now that I can kind of work through my trials, my tribulations, and kind of put the pen to paper on those, and then I'm just more like resilient, robust as a professor in the classroom. So again, there might be a few levels. So maybe a more of an indirect impact, but I certainly think it's had a big impact.
But I think to put an analogy, if you sharpen, if we're talking about a sharp object like a sword or a knife or what, if you go through the crucible of whether that's musical performance or physical training or whatnot, you're sharpening that sharp edge of the knife, of the sword, insert whatever other analogy you want to use. And then when you have to display that, you can more confidently. Is that accurate?
It's great. Exactly. Yes, that's exactly. So I do think that's had an impact. Yeah.
Now, how do you balance your personal life with your faculty responsibilities?
Oh gosh. Yeah. It can be challenging at times. I think that's a good question because I'm not sure if it's different in industry or as a small business owner. I think that in general, I've learned that there's going to be seasons of work and seasons of time off. And I've learned to kind of be more present in what's in front of me. So like during finals week, and I have service, like last year, you're creeping up on finals, you've got tests, you have like a research paper that has a revision due, and then you're on like a search committee. And so it's like, hey, you know what? We have a week of snow coming, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, let's get prepared for it. Let's make sure we have food. Let's make sure our heat is working, all this stuff. And so I kind of just take it piece by piece and I kind of try to stay present in that. And then there's going to be a week or two, maybe in the summer, where you have time to wind down and relax and recharge. And I think aside from that, I've tried to again, being more present and just more kind of in tune with what's in front of me has helped me handle heavy and light loads better. And when there is a heavy load, personal stuff gets put to the side a little bit. And when there's a light load, I get a little more time for personal stuff. And I've kind of, this could come off as almost like a defeatist attitude, but I don't want it to. It's more of like embracing the different challenges and just kind of going with them.
Yeah, understanding high and low, if you will, and being able to, I guess, handle those things and rev up your engine when you need to rev it up and idle or put it on cruise when you can put it on cruise. And I think that's something I personally have gotten a little bit better at. I'm definitely better than when I was. I'm definitely not where I need to be with that. But
same.
I think that I was on a search committee recently, and there was a time where it was like, all right, it's go time. There was like 2 weeks where it was just like, okay, all that stuff, like even my exercise routine just got squished down to like, instead of this many hours, it's now half of that many hours, just because that's what is necessitated, because that's a high period or rev up time. So I think that's a phenomenal strategy. Any other strategies? Are there any specific things that you utilize to try to help you or safeguard yourself during those times?
Oh, that's a good question. I think the biggest thing for me is really just sleep and exercise. That's like really big for me. When I'm not sleeping, if I don't sleep because there's a lot on my mind, or because it's just like I have to get up early and I was working late, that like it gets me, like I can't do that. I need my sleep, and then I need some form of physical activity. And it doesn't have to be like a 90-minute gym like power training.
Yeah.
Like it's even just things like this. Like I was like, yeah, let's definitely do it in person, and I'm going to walk. And like that walk is just helpful. Just kind of trying to build in a little bit into your lifestyle. But I think building an active lifestyle and making sure I get enough rest, I think those are really the two main things that I focus on.
Yeah, that's one thing that I do. I think I do pretty well at that, and I become sort of a lunatic at times. My wife put a stop to this. We have a weight vest and I have a push lawnmower, so I was like, screw it, let's just put them together. So let's put out the weight vests on and mow the lawn. And it was like 95 outside, and I was doing it when you're not supposed to be like, dude. It was like the heat of the day, and my wife comes outside and goes, "What are you doing?" It's like, well, I couldn't get a full workout in, so this is my workout. She's like, are you kidding me? And so I have a tendency to take it overboard, but I definitely appreciate your building an active lifestyle, because that's one of the things that one of my colleagues is very keen on, is trying to take the harder step, the one that like, okay, elevator or stairs, let's take the stairs. You know what? We got a snowblower, we got a shovel. It might suck, let's go with the shovel. Except for if there's 4 feet of snow or something crazy like that. So I love that, building an active life. All right, if you could go back in time and meet yourself before your first day at JMU, what advice would you give yourself and why?
Ooh. This is going to sound somewhat generic, but I think this is what I would say. I would really tell myself to do your best to be present in your environment, whether it's the classroom, whether it's, you're researching or doing service engagements. Like, don't get bogged down with tenure. Don't get bogged down with, an award, with titles, with the prestige of the publication. And it's like, well, yeah, if you don't do those things, then, you need to do those things to get tenure. And it's like, sure, you need to get you want to get tenure, but I think enjoy the journey and just kind of be present for it, and stuff will fall into place as it should if you're putting in your honest effort. And if it doesn't, then you need to go put your honest effort somewhere else. And I think that's what I would tell myself. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I love hearing these answers.
I appreciate it.
If you could give every faculty member one resource to elevate whether it's personal or professional, or it's something that you believe could be tangentially related, what would be that resource?
That's a great question. How about a free parking spot? No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. Don't. You can edit that one out. I'll leave that up to you.
That's awesome.
No, I don't know. That's a really good question. I think
that is a really good answer.
Actually, don't edit this out. I love all like the laughs and everything. Leave this in. No, I think I would, if I had to give every faculty one resource. One thing I really liked about like the mentorship program that CFI had, I would love to see more. I'm trying to think what resource would help with more cross-disciplinary, even if it's not like a research project, but just work and like understanding and talking, and like we didn't know each other before this podcast. Like, this is great. Like, I would love more opportunities to get to know my fellow faculty and staff at JMU in organic ways, or whether they're set up. But either way, I think that would be really helpful. Just more opportunities to meet other faculty and talk, like this, like organic, and get to know them, I think would be really helpful. There doesn't have to be even, and I know for this one, there's not necessarily a tangential, you may not get a publication out of it, but just talking can really help.
Thank you very much, Bobby. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast today.
It's been a blast. Thank you so much. We'll see if we get free parking or not. But,
I wouldn't cross your fingers.
I won't cross. This has been a blast. Thanks so much for having me, and best of luck with the podcast in the future.
Thank you. That's it for today's episode of the CFI Faculty Lounge Podcast. A big thank you to our guests, CFI Ops team, Sarah Rush, Zach Williams, and most importantly, you, our listeners. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a colleague. To stay updated on new podcast episodes and other faculty development opportunities, join our listserv by clicking in the link in the description. Thanks for listening, and tune in next time for more meaningful conversations about teaching and faculty life.